I went and tracked, I think we've had 155 mass casualty events this year alone, since January. Some of them, people were wounded, but, others, if we just look at what happened a couple weeks ago in Virginia Beach, you go from one extreme to the other. So it's really incumbent upon you out there to find out what your schools are doing, what your churches are doing. Any type of mass event like here, right? Where's the exits? How do I get out if somebody comes in that door there? If somebody comes over here, where do I go? And then really it's incumbent upon you, and I know you've probably all heard this, run, hide, fight. And that really is the key, and I think we're seeing a trend now where people are starting to fight. We just saw this happen recently at the...
We did at STEM. And I think here's where I land on active shooter situations, is that the training is incredibly important. It's important to know and to have a plan and to be aware, as Art said, of your surroundings, where you are. I often walk into a room, and without even knowing it, I'm looking for the exits, I'm looking for places to hide. I think probably a lot of us do that now, since we have seen such an increase in mass violence in all places, as Art again said. It can be schools, it can be a concert, it can be a movie theater, a church, it can be a workplace. We've seen these things unfortunately happen everywhere. So it's that being prepared, having a plan. But even as Art and I were talking about earlier, it's impossible to have a plan for every scenario. And as we've seen play out in multiple incidents, is that there has never been two school shootings or two, acts of violence that are the same. Every time it's different, so it's very difficult even for law enforcement to train for every type of scenario. And so I think that's what Art is saying, is having this, that it really comes down to your responsibility to kind of have a plan in place, especially as a parent. Unfortunately, I have to have these conversations with my own children. Okay, so they're doing things at school, but then I have to come home and say, okay, so what did you learn? And what would you do? And you kind of pepper them with questions, asking how they would respond. Well, here's how mom would respond. Or we've talked about it walking into church before. Here's what we would do if something happened, just so that we've talked about it, but we don't dwell on it, because again, we're not going to let it control us and live in fear. But it's having something in place so you know what to do and you know how to respond. And a lot of times when an event unfolds, things that you already know or have been trained to do, or the plans that are in place, fly out the window because of you're in an active shooter situation. Right. So what you're doing is you're either running to find, to get out of immediate danger, you're finding a good place to hide. And as Art said, now we're seeing this trend in people fighting.